In this video, I'm going to tell you what to do with your miniatures when the game that you like isn't the game that you like anymore. Someone far smarter than me once said that change is the only constant, and I believe that to be true, and I believe it to be doubly true in tabletop gaming, especially when you're talking about the big companies within our small niche. Sometimes some things will change. A game will change, and then you may not like the new game. That has happened to me before. Ciao, a little bit there. But also Star Wars X-Wing, as an example. A friend of mine and I still play the very old original version of Star Wars X-Wing, version 1.0, I think it's referred to, because we just didn't feel like upgrading to the new one, and we predominantly just play against each other. So, admittedly, when a new version of any tabletop game comes out, you can always stick with the old one, which is one of the very cool things about tabletop games, which I've mentioned so many times before. But sometimes it's not just, oh, the edition changed and I don't like the new edition. Sometimes it's just like, I don't like this game anymore for other reasons. Sometimes you still dig the game, but all the people that you play with and your friends and stuff like that are mad at the company because it's something they did, or they're just bored with it, or you're just bored with it, or whatever's going on. And then what's left in all of the aftermath of all of this upheaval is your poor tiny little miniatures. And where are they going to go? Well, obviously, you could, if you were, in my opinion, some sort of monster, flip them on eBay. I don't like to sell miniatures that I've painted. So if they're miniatures you haven't painted, then you could flip them on eBay. I've done that myself. Or if you don't really have a preference as far as that, then sell them on eBay if you want to get rid of them, and then you can take that money and put it into a new game, or buying a motorcycle, or all kinds of things, paying your rent. But you could also hold on to them. You could hold on to these miniatures, and let me tell you why. It's because if you take a miniature from game A and try to use it in game B, no fires will start. The police won't come. It'll be all right. Now, this doesn't seem like a thing that I should have to say, but it is a thing I have to say, because there are people out there that are like, yeah, but I can't play this game with that miniature set. And I'm like, oh, but you can. So I'm going to explain to you a little bit about kind of what you can do with the miniatures that you've got when you've decided that that game that they were affiliated with is no longer to your liking for whatever reason. One thing that you can do is find another game. Now, here's the thing. There are these games out there called model agnostic games, or miniature agnostic games, or just MA games. I'm trying to get that out there for brevity's sake. And so when you want to play an MA game, the whole concept is you can use whatever you want, obviously. So if a game is a fantasy game, you may not want to bring in a bunch of sci-fi folks. There's no one telling you can't. It's just that you may be like, all right, this is maybe a little bit more outside of, pushing on the edge of the immersion thing that I seem to like, and so I'm not going to do that. But you can easily use fantasy models in pretty much every other fantasy game. Skeletons are skeletons. You can use them in any game pretty much that has skeletons. They're very interchangeable. Big, burly barbarian folks are the same kind of way. Knights. There's just so many. There are specific games out there, admittedly, that have very, very specific things. They're like, these are the models for our thing. We've made our thing very specific. And then you'd be like, I'm going to put this model into some other game, and it'll just admittedly look weird. And as long as you're cool with it, knock yourself out. But there's other things that you can do. There are plenty of games out there, just a rule set that is designed to kind of pick up all that extra leftover pieces from when you've decided that you're done with big game X or whatever, game is out there kind of running the world. Well, why don't you give us some examples, Uncle Adam? Certainly I will. Let's say that you like a game called, Warhammer 40,000. That's a very, very popular game. Zillions of people. Okay, that's over. A lot of people play it. And so you probably have all kinds of models. Maybe you're into Adeptus Mechanicus, you're into Chaos, maybe you're into Imperial Guard, maybe whatever. There's so many different types of models out there, obviously. And the thing is, there are games out there who don't want to make a line of models, so they just make a new set of rules. For example, Star Breach from Slow Death Games is a game that is designed to be played sci-fi and all that kind of stuff. And the army lists in that book, when you look at them, you're like, I have no idea who this is. And then you read about a half paragraph and you're like, oh, that's the Tau. Okay, I get you. They don't say this is the Tau because they don't want to get it, but they're basically saying, let's say you have some Tau, this would be the army list you could use if you wanted to go down that road, certainly. And you can kind of go through every single army list in there and just read it for a little bit and then be like, oh yeah, no, that's the Gene Stealer cults. And those models can then be brought directly into, let's say, Star Breach, and you can do that. But it's not just 40K stuff that they do. They also have stuff from Star Wars kind of in there, but again, they're being very, they don't want to step on any toes. But they also want you to be able to take the plastic models that you bought from this company and be able to use them in, the games written by their company. So there's nobody's hurt by this situation, right? There's also, lists in that book that are completely kind of just generic, nomads, space pirates, stuff like that. So you can use whatever kind of models you want, but if you are interested in using specifically your Games Workshop models, and maybe you're not interested in playing Games Workshop anymore, you can bring those models in there. But there are other games. Beyond the Gates of Antares is a sci-fi game. Maelstrom's Edge is a sci-fi game. And you can probably take those models and also look at these lists and go, well, they were technically talking about Tau here, but this will work too with these guys. So, have a little bit of fun figuring out, I have these models, what am I going to do with them in this game? And a lot of these games will definitely kind of hold your hand in that situation. Another system that is gaining a lot of popularity is one-page rules. Now, one-page rules originally started where they put all the rules for, let's say, I think Warhammer 40,000 was maybe the first one, and they put it all on one page. It was both sides of the page. It's technically one piece of paper rules, but that makes the logo look funny. So one-page rules was originally designed as just a freebie. Hey, check this out. This can allow you to still play 40K, but easier with less stuff and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. As far as books and all that jazz, you still need the models. Well, they've expanded and expanded and expanded, and now they've gotten into the fantasy side, and they've gotten into like Kill Team, and they've gotten into Necromunda, and they've even started getting into spaceship games and all that kind of stuff. And they have, expanded, so the books are not necessarily one page anymore. They still do make one-page versions of many of them, but they're also like, but if you want something a little bit nicer, then there's this, and it's like super cheap as well, and you can buy it as a PDF, and you have all the information that you need, including army lists. They have army lists as well, pretty much for all of the big stuff from predominantly 40K in this situation. And if you're playing I think it's called Age of Fantasy, then they're going to have the stuff that matches up with your Age of Sigmar models. So you don't have to go, oh man, now I need to get new models because I need to play a new game. You can just go grab a new game, and then these kind of situations will allow you to use the models you already have, and they are very specifically designed to pick up for people who are like either just it's too much these days. It's just too much, this stuff, or it's just they want to try something different, but they have all these models. It gives you some choices. And of course, there are plenty of other rules out there. There are sci-fi rules, there are fantasy rules, and they are all designed to use whatever kind of models for the most part that you want to use. You can just basically look at the rules, figure things out, and if you want to build stuff custom, you can certainly do that. But if you've already got a whole bunch of models and you're thinking to yourself, gosh, I sure would like to play with some of this stuff that I spent all this time, building and painting, you can easily fit these into these rule sets. Other rule sets may not necessarily have, oh, here's our army lists already laid out, and you can kind of read through it and guess, oh, yeah, that's supposed to be Space Marines. But you can also, with a lot of army sets, just go through and say, I have these guys, and there's kind of stats in the game for like, well, if they have a blaster and power armor, then they cost this many points, and now you can kind of custom build small skirmish groups and things like that. And it's very quick and easy, and that's kind of nice. Now, all of that stuff, again, fantasy, sci-fi, that's something that you might have to put a little bit of work into, and it's a little bit outside of the realm of some people's experience within fantasy and sci-fi tabletop gaming. If we're talking about historicals, we don't even need to mention it, because in historical gaming, the models, you've got a bunch of World War II US guys, and you decide that this rule set, I don't want to play that anymore, or your friends aren't playing it anymore, or whatever. You move over to this other World War II set, everybody comes across easy. It's fine because it's a known quantity. All the different nations that were in these battles, whether it's World War II, World War I, Civil War, ancients, all that kind of stuff. Those people playing those types of games, historicals, have been swapping their models around back and forth between miniature sets, rule sets, for a long time. So this is nothing new to them. But if you are a person who's been playing a game and building a collection, and you just want to try something else, or you just don't like the new way that the new game or whatever is going, there's a lot of things you can do to look around out there. Just do some Google searches. Go take a look at some indie sites. Go take a look at wargamevault.com for a suggestion, and see all the different types of rule sets that are available on there that you can take a look at and go, maybe this is the thing that my such and such squad could then just sort of transition it over into, and then you can have some fun without having to stick to a specific rule, and you don't have to, sell off all the models that you worked on.